Now, more workers are dipping into retirement savings early, not because they want to, but because everyday emergencies are getting harder to absorb. A car repair, medical bill, rent problem, or job disruption can sometimes make a 401k feel like the only place to turn. Taking money out early can create another problem later. The money may be taxed, penalties may apply, and the dollars you pull out lose years of potential growth. With us now is Lawrence Sprung, founder at Mitlin Financial and author of Financial Planning Made Personal. Lawrence, good morning. Thanks so much for joining us. Early withdrawals are becoming more common. It's worrying.
Yeah, it's crazy. Vanguard, who is a big provider in the financial services space, found hardship withdrawals hit a record of 4.8% of participants in 2024. And that was up from 3.6% in 2023 and only 1.7% in 2020. And the most common reason was avoiding foreclosure or eviction, followed by medical expenses. So those are somewhat, alarming statistics.
That's worrying. So it's a multi-pronged hit, Lawrence. So people are struggling with home payments or medical payments. Number one is a challenge, and then the second one, we have all of these fees and lost potential growth that comes from actually dipping into your 401k.
Yeah, I mean, you have to think about before you go dipping into the 401k, it's not just the withdrawal itself, because that withdrawal can cost way more than the amount you take out. Fidelity says hardship withdrawals are generally taxable, and people under the age of 59 and a half may face an additional 10% early withdrawal penalty unless they qualify for an exception. And really, the biggest cost, if you think about it, is that money that you take out is no longer invested, so it can't keep growing. So, for instance, if you net out $10,000, you may have to take out close to 13 to 15,000 after taxes and expenses. So if you take out 15,000 and net 10, at the end of the day, that 15,000 10, 20 years ago, 20 years from now, can be the equivalent of 30, 60, or more than $100,000 for your retirement.
It's just incredible. But Lawrence, as you kind of point out, sometimes it doesn't seem to be any other option than to take this route. Are there alternatives? How would you, if somebody came to you and was in this situation, how would you guide them through it?
I think the first line of defense is to have a good emergency fund, to have an emergency fund on hand to keep, small emergencies from turning into retirement withdrawals, just having that on the side. So if you don't
Well, are you
have an
talking
emergency
10,000, 15,000, Lawrence?
in terms of the size of an emergency fund, you're saying?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, that depends on each family. We usually recommend a minimum of 3 months of your monthly expenses saved up in an emergency fund. And then depending upon your facts and situation, if you're self-employed, may want to keep more than that just in case you have a slowdown in business. So if you have an emergency fund, that should be your first line of defense. If you don't, then before you go taking withdrawal from your 401k, a loan may be less damaging than a withdrawal, because you can take a 401k loan, usually has to be paid back, while a hardship withdrawal cannot be put back in the same way. The big risk there is if you leave that job when you still owe on the loan may become due faster than expected and create another financial problem. But those are things that we want to look at before you go dipping in and taking money out of your retirement.
So did you call that a 401k loan, Lawrence?
Yes, you can take a loan. Typically, as long as your plan provides it, you can typically borrow up to 50% of your account balance, up to a maximum of $50,000. So if you have $25,000 in your 401k, your maximum loan amount would be 12.5. If you have $100,000 or more, your maximum loan amount would be 50,000. But be aware that if you do leave that job while that loan is being paid back, it could be demanded payback within a relatively short time of you leaving that job.
What kind of a loan rate do you get on these 401k loans, and what's the kind of payback duration?
Yeah, so typically they're on a 5-year amortization schedule. So a 5-year loan, the rate is usually in line with wherever the federal market is in terms of rates. So it's pretty reasonable. And the reality is you are paying yourself back. So it's not like the interest that you're paying is going to a bank or your employer. You are actually paying that interest back to yourself and to your 401k account. So it's not really hurting you as much as a traditional loan would be. And if it makes sense, it could be a much better option than simply withdrawing that money out of your retirement plan.
It sounds like a great potential option for anybody who is in that position. Lawrence, I know people, they often cash out between jobs, perhaps especially if the balance in their account is kind of small. What do you make of that strategy?
It's terrible. You're being taxed on money right away because you've taken that money out, and then you've lost all the future potential growth from that account. So, the benchmark right now is plans. If you have balances under $7,000 in your retirement plan and you leave that employer or you're terminated, in many cases below 7,000, they have the ability to force you out of the plan, and you're going to get a notice that says, you have a choice. You can either roll this over in this amount of time, and if to a new plan or an IRA, and if you don't, we're going to send you a check, and that check is typically for 80% of the value that you had in the account, because the other 20% is sent to the federal government to prepay your taxes on that withdrawal or help pay towards your taxes on that withdrawal. So it typically is not a great idea. You're better off rolling that into your new employer's plan or into your IRA, and then
Right.
you can make a decision later on. And if you want to take some of it or need to take some of it, you can. But ultimately, it's best suited if you leave it and let it grow for the foreseeable future.
Right. I guess people get that idea of getting a check in the mail, Lawrence, is too appealing for some people, but we appreciate your advice. That's Lawrence Sprung, founder of Mitlin Financial and author of Financial Planning Made Personal. Lawrence, as always, thank you.
Thank you.